Okay, girls, said Twilight. Trixie, Fluttershy, Rarity, and herself had gathered in the library. We need to come up with a plan. Just then there was a knock at the door. Twilight went to see who it was, and it was Applejack. Howdy, Twilight, she said. Applejack? Asked Twilight. What are you doing here? I just wanted to help stop Pinkie Pie, answered Applejack. Are you sure? Asked Twilight. You don't know what she's like. If she's anything like Apple Bloom said Applejack. Well, I can never forgive myself if it didn't help. Twilight smiled. Glad to have you, she said, stepping aside. Hey, girls, said Applejack, entering the library. Hello, AJ, said Trixie as Twilight closed the door. Trixie, said Applejack, I'm glad to have you with us. Now, let's get down to business, said Twilight, rejoining the group. Aren't the royal guards tracking her down? Asked Rarity. They don't know her like we do, said Twilight. Besides, the last thing I heard was that they have no idea where she is. But I have an idea. Really? Asked Fluttershy. Where? Philadelphia. But why would she stay in one spot? Asked Applejack. Apple Bloom told me that she was last spotted in Philadelphia. Why would she stay there? What better way to throw off the royal guard than to stay in the most obvious place? Asked Twilight. You sure she's that clever? Asked Rarity. She was able to fool us and the princess and the royal guard this whole time. She's more clever than she had us believe. So, what do we do? Asked Trixie. We go to Philadelphia, said Twilight, and we stop her, just like we did last time. Sounds like a plan, said Applejack. Anyone who messes with my little sister has to answer to me. I like your spirit, said Twilight. I have a feeling this will be much easier than last time. Just a quick question, said Applejack. Just how psychotic is Pinkie Pie, exactly? She bakes her victims into cupcakes, said Twilight. She was going to make me into a coat to wear, said Rarity. Said Applejack. Wow. You sure you're up for this? Asked Trixie. I mean, I was only in captivity for a few moments, and even I know how psychotic she is. I'm sure, answered Applejack. She corrupted my sister. Well, now that that's settled, we can go, said Twilight. Pinkie Pie let out a sigh as she sat down at the table in the lounge. Fern was cooking something on the stove, and she had looked over when Pinkie Pie entered the room. What's wrong with you? She asked. I'm bored, said Pinkie. Bored? Asked Fern. You're bored? I know, it's weird, isn't it? Said Pinkie. I've just run out of things to do. No more ponies to eat? Asked Fern. Oh, which reminds me, said Pinkie. Oh no, said Fern. What? I've invited Macy over, and she should be here any minute, said Pinkie. When she gets here, send her to the basement. Fern stopped cooking and set the pan she was holding down on the counter. You're going to kill her, aren't you? Well, said Pinkie. I won't do it, said Fern. Pinkie's eyes narrowed as she got out of her chair and walked towards Fern. Fern backed up until she hit the wall, and Pinkie stood directly in front of her. I would have thought, after all this time, Pinkie started, you would have learned to do whatever I say. There was a knock at the front door. That must be her. You know what to do. Fern watched as Pinkie Pie headed to the basement. Fern inhaled deeply and made her way to the front door. She opened the door and was greeted with Macy. Hey, she said. Hey, Macy. Is Pinkie Pie here? Is she ever not? Asked Fern. Macy smiled. Where is she? Fern hesitated before answering. In the... She paused to clear her throat. In the basement. You okay? Asked Macy, walking past Fern. You mean, apart from being a hostage? Asked Fern, closing the door. She watched as Macy made her way through the lounge. Fern stood in the lobby for a minute or so. When she finally came to, she ran into the lounge. Macy, she called out. But it was too late. She had already gone to the basement. Fern sat down at the table and rested her head. What have I done? She asked herself. My only friend. Just then she heard someone coming upstairs. Macy? She asked, turning around. Pinky was standing in the doorway. She wasn't covered in blood, though. She then stopped to the side, and another pony appeared in the doorway. It was Macy. Fern let out a heavy sigh of relief. I thought you were going to eat her, said Fern, as Macy sat down at the table. I was, said Pinky. Well, why didn't you? Asked Fern. But Pinky said nothing. Because you knew she was my friend, Fern said, sitting down next to Macy. You couldn't do it. Pinky shifted her eyes to the right. So, there is some good in you, after all. Pinky looked back at Fern. There is no good in me, Pinky said. This is just to show you that I can be nice when I want to be. Right, said Fern. Don't push your luck, said Pinky. Besides, what friend sentences another friend to death? What are you talking about? Asked Macy. Fern, what is she talking about? Fern knew what would happen to ponies who are sent to the basement, and yet she still sent you. Her friend. Macy looked at Fern. I was scared, yelled Fern. You care more about yourself than you do about your own friend, said Pinky. That's not true. Then why'd you do it? Asked Pinky. Fern rested her head back down on the table and cried. I don't know, she cried, but I wanted to say something. I've never been so scared in my life. I thought that I'd lost my best friend. Your only friend, said Macy. Well, isn't this nice? Said Pinky. You can try to tear us apart, said Macy, but we have something you never have. Friendship. I had that once, said Pinky, until I was betrayed. The same friends I once had were the ones that made me who I am today. It seems you need to learn forgiveness, said Macy. Forgiveness, said Pinky with a chuckle. That's a funny concept. It's not funny at all, said Fern, raising her head. It's nice. Oh, please, said Pinky. Someone get a bowl. I think I'm going to throw up. I wonder what you were like before, said Macy. Enough of this, said Pinky. I'm going for a walk, she said, grabbing her coat and leaving the lounge. Pinkie Pie left the building and stood outside. She let out a sigh and sat down next to the door. Thoughts of her past life started to flow through her memory. Go away, Pinky, she said. I'm in control now. She held her hooves to her head. This didn't stop her thinking about all the fun times she had had with her old friends. Fern's gonna pay for this. Are you okay? Asked a pony, standing in front of the building door. I'm fine, said Pinky. All right then, said the pony, knocking on the door. Pinkie Pie suddenly realized that the voice sounded familiar. She looked up slightly to see who it was. It was Twilight. Pinky's eyes widened. She slipped away without Twilight noticing and made her way to the back. She entered through the back hallway and entered the lounge. Macy was there, waiting for Fern. She peeked through the door to the lobby and saw Fern talking with Twilight. After a couple of seconds, Twilight left and Fern closed the door. Pinky backed up as Fern entered the lounge. Pinky then lunged at her, pinning her to the floor. What did you tell her? She yelled. Nothing, said Fern. Don't lie to me. I'm not. Pinky took a deep breath and let Fern up. What was that all about? That was Twilight, said Pinky. Twilight Sparkle. That's right, said Fern. That's what she said. Hey, how did you know her name? She used to be my friend, said Pinky, sounding a little upset. Do you miss her? Asked Macy. Pinky's eyes narrowed. Of course not. It just seems like you might, said Fern. Don't condescend me, said Pinky. I don't miss her. All right, fine, said Fern. You're the boss. Twilight walked up to Trixie, who was standing in front of Macy's. This place is empty, said Trixie. Find anything? Nothing, said Twilight. Although, the pony at the post office seemed afraid when I asked. What do you want to do? Asked Trixie. We go back at night. I have this weird feeling that Pinky's close. I let the others know, said Trixie. Thanks, Twilight said. I'm going to look around some more. Fern sat down at the table across from Pinkie Pie. So, tell me about your tooth, she said. Pinky stared at her. My tooth? Yeah, said Fern. You know, your metal one? My metal one, huh? Yeah. When you bit me on the first day, I felt that one of your teeth was metal. Pinky sighed. All right, she said. Fern leaned in to hear better. When I was born, when this side of me was born, I knew I might get caught. So I pulled out one of my teeth and then replaced it with a sharp, pointy metal one. This gave me the ability to saw through metal chains and escape. Fern stared. Didn't it hurt? If I had done it 5 weeks ago, it would have, yes. Now, it didn't bother me. So, you can't feel pain? I can, said Pinky. It just doesn't bother me as much now. Uh-huh, said Fern. What's today? Pinky asked. Sunday? I think so, Fern said. Pinky let out an annoying sigh. One more day. One more day for what? Asked Pinky. One more day and I can eat again. You're still on that? Asked Fern. You still eat other ponies? Of course, said Pinky. Then, why haven't you eaten me yet? Pinky paused before saying anything. Because She stopped and sighed. Because you what? Asked Fern. I kind of like your company. This caught Fern by surprise. You do? She asked. Pinky nodded. That's why I want you to do as I say, so I won't have to eat you. Wait, said Fern. You'd still eat me? Sure, said Pinky. Meat is meat, but I wouldn't like it. That's a relief, said Fern. Just be sure to stay on my good side, and nothing will happen to you. Macy burst through the door, panting heavily. What's wrong with you? Asked Pinky. I have to tell you something, said Macy. I don't want to be eaten. Is that it? Asked Pinky. No. The pony that was here earlier? Twilight? Asked Pinky. What about her? She's coming back tonight. Pinky got out of her chair. I think she knows. Then there's only one thing I can do, said Pinky. When she gets here, send her to the basement.